Hello and welcome to the PFF Fantasy Football Podcast. I'm your host, Ian Hartitz, and tonight, coming to you at 11:32 p.m. Eastern Time from Columbus, Ohio. We're going to break down the Falcons' 25-17 victory over the Panthers on Thursday Night Football and also go over some of the key injury notes and news to watch ahead of Week 8. Hope everyone enjoyed this rainy edition of Thursday Night Football. It wasn't maybe the shootout we were all hoping for, and maybe some more fantasy football managers out there were a little more pissed off than usual up until the very end, and even then not super happy. But anyway, let's get on with it. So in this matchup, it was a situation where the Falcons and Panthers alike, they were able to move the ball up and down the field, particularly the Falcons. For most of the games, we just kept seeing drives stall out. It must have been an excruciating, just game, really, the whole 60 minutes for anyone that was betting the over because, the Falcons, go right up and down the field in the first quarter, have to settle for 2 field goals. They were like on the 5-yard line on 4th and 1. They did the just bullshit thing where they go up the line of scrimmage, don't actually snap it. The defense never jumps off sides, and they burn a timeout and kick the field goal after. So you hate to see that, but they were able to go back down. Matt Ryan scored a rushing touchdown, scooted in, just kind of scrambled off the right side, and the Panther defender that should have been able to get him just slipped and fell. Again, it was slippery out there with all the rain coming down. Like a typical quarterback, Matt Ryan, after getting the rushing touchdown, just acted like he had the most swagger ever. Just anytime those guys at that position do anything athletic, it's just maddening how they act like that. That's what they're always pulling out there. But anyway, Falcons went on, just kicking field goals. Other than that, we had Todd Gurley get a touchdown later in the fourth quarter. NFL rushing touchdown leader, Todd Gurley, to everyone out there. But other than that, we just didn't see all that much, just explosive play. Goodness for the Falcons, unless they were throwing the ball to Julio Jones. Matt Ryan, with those just deep end routes that we've seen him get to Julio over the years, just always something special. And it was hitting heavy and often early because they were just really feeding Julio early on, even before Calvin Ridley got hurt. Unfortunately, it is an ankle injury for Ridley. He was kind of holding his foot when it happened. He wasn't going off before necessarily, but was having some good moments with Yak. And, it's one of these things where, Ridley, whenever he gets those 8 targets, it's usually going to be a big game. Only had 4 tonight and, had 3 catches for 42 yards before he had to exit early. Hopefully not too severe, but again, was not good that he got ruled out, at halftime and just wasn't able to even try to come back out and play on it. In his absence, it's going to be the Julio show. Russell Gage hasn't necessarily seen a ton of extra targets. When one of these outside receiver leaves, he's kind of just stuck there in the slot. Normally, I thought it was I've worked on this pronunciation and everyone. Olamide Zaccheaus is the one that we were seeing in past games kind of step up when Ridley is sidelined. But this game, we actually saw Christian Blake play 34 snaps and Zaccheaus only 9 after Ridley went out. So they're going to be thin play regardless if Ridley misses time. But situation worth monitoring for the deeper leagues out there. But yeah, great game from Julio. 7 catches, 137 yards on 10 targets. All 3 of Julio Jones' incomplete targets were in the end zone. Just one of these things where I do think we should change the name of a performance where a receiver gets over 100 receiving yards and no scores. Let's just call it a Julio. He does lead the NFL history in that stat. Julio Jones has 29 career games now with over 100 receiving yards and 0 touchdowns. Nobody else has more than 22. I believe it was Andre Johnson and Jimmy Smith tied at 22. Obviously, this is one of those things like how people criticize LeBron, for losing the finals. It's like, oh, well, would Julio be better off, getting 90 yards and not scoring a touchdown? I get it. He's the man. I'm not hating on the guy, but it truly is just wild that, a guy can be this good and just struggle to find the end zone as often as it kind of seems like it plays out for him. With this Falcons backfield, we saw Gurley end up racking up 18 carries, not very efficient, 46 yards, did have the touchdown, was just, a 0 in the passing game, but the snaps were really a lot closer than we've grown used to seeing here in recent weeks. So Gurley ended up playing 36 offensive snaps. Brian Hill was at 24. And Quadri Allison sitting down there at 6. So, Gurley was still a league guy. We have seen, in games in the past where when it's kind of gotten out of reach for the Falcons, they've gone more with Brian Hill or Ito Smith, who is inactive in this one, on passing downs. But to see the Falcons really build a lead and then not give the ball to Gurley as much as you kind of would think that they might, surprising to see. And it wasn't like they were up multiple scores or anything, but it was a lot of Brian Hill. He looked a little bit better than Gurley. 11 carries, 55 yards. I do think Brian Hill, if he just took every one of their touches this year. You're going to see a little bit more explosive back than Gurley at this point in their careers, but I don't think Hill's going to necessarily carve out a fantasy viable role, and Gurley's still the one they kind of want to get most of the action to inside the 5-yard line. So wasn't the best performance from Gurley. I wonder if some of that had to do with that boneheaded play from last week where he went in the end zone. He had another bad one at the end of this game where he should have been staying in bounds, and he ended up going out when they were trying to kill the clock. But not great awareness from Todd Gurley. We'll see if Madden takes note, but either way, I do think he's going to continue to kind of flirt with this 20 touch mark more weeks than not. On the Panthers side of the ball, Teddy Bridgewater, 15 for 23, 176 yards, touchdown and a pick, was getting kind of pressured a lot, and the Falcons were sending some interesting blitzes at him that the offensive line wasn't necessarily helping him out a lot with. Scary moment when he tried to scramble, kind of got like tripped and then turned and then just got cheap shotted in the back of the head by a Falcons player who was immediately ejected after that. But, Teddy passed the concussion protocols. They were calling it a neck injury. He ended up coming in and trying to finish it out. Threw a pick at the end of the game, trying to force it to DJ Moore, which sounds weird to say because that was not the reality for pretty much the first 54 minutes of this game. DJ Moore ended up with 6 targets, caught 2 of them for 55 yards. I thought he almost got hurt on the first play of the game. Teddy tried to force it to him and looked like DJ was kind of rubbing his shoulder, but we literally just didn't see targets really until deep into the fourth quarter, other than maybe 1 or 2 in there. So DJ, when he got his first one, he broke 2 tackles, including a vicious stiff arm, and then Teddy just lofted one up deep, and DJ was able to come back to it after, toasting AJ Terrell on a double move and came down to 42 yards. So the guy showed exactly why, we love him in fantasy. He gets the air yards, and he's also a beast after the catch. He's going to have weeks where he's a little bit more involved. I think it's pretty clear that's going to be the case. But even with, this just near worst case scenario game for DJ Moore, it's wild that he managed to outproduce Robbie Anderson, at least from a receiving yards perspective. Anderson had 8 targets, caught 5 of them for 48 scoreless yards. But, it truly is 1A, 1B at the top of this wide receiver room. We did see Curtis Samuel get a lot more involved than I think in past weeks. And, kind of noted this in the wide receiver cornerback column I publish every week. You can find that on PFF.com. That is free of charge, everyone, not even behind a paywall. Love all you readers out there. But anyway, with one thing I noted, and that was, with Seth Roberts going to Green Bay now, Curtis Samuel wasn't, he's been banged up. He wasn't really a lock to be playing an every down role. We did see him in this game out there alongside DJ and Robbie just as often. It was him, Robbie, and DJ Moore in the main 3 wide receiver sets all game. And we saw some backfield work, ended up with 3 carries, 23 yards, and another touchdown, 12 yards right up the middle to cap off a drive where Mike Davis really helped get him down there. So great stuff from Curtis Samuel. I'm calling him the millennial Percy Harvin, everyone. And you can say that's an insult to Percy. Look, they're both, Urban Meyer, RB wide receiver hybrid disciples. And Curtis Samuel is 24 years old. Like, give this guy a little bit more time. It hasn't exactly been, the most structured kind of start to his career. He was injured as a rookie. Then he had to go through the Kyle Allen experience. And now, he's adjusting to Teddy and he's been injured again. So we still see, the pure speed. Troy Aikman couldn't say enough good things about the guy in the broadcast. I'm biased as a, just Columbus, Ohio lifer, but, Curtis Samuel, truly good at football, in my opinion. And I think, the nation will agree with me one of these years before it's all said and done. With the Panthers backfield, Mike Davis just dominating snaps per usual, 13 carries, 66 yards, also chipped in 1 catch for 11 yards. Not, the kind of RB1 game we were hoping for with someone getting, a true Christian McCaffrey-esque workload, but, it is what it is when you're not able to find the end zone, or and you just have Teddy Bridgewater only throwing 23 passes. It was just one of these games again where the Panthers kind of had this happen against the Saints where they just weren't able to sustain drives, and the Falcons were. So we didn't see, a ton of just play volume for the Panthers. And they did have 2 4th-and-1s, get stuff, and moving the ball at the end of the game. They had every chance to win. This was not, a dominant Falcons victory by any stretch of the imagination, but they got the job done. Win is a win is a win. 25-17 Falcons. Kudos to them. Last point I will make, I forgot to mention this before. Hayden Hurst, Falcons tight end. He ended up having 5 catches, 54 yards, and 7 targets. Had a really nice one where he was running down the seam and the ball was, barely off the grass. And, it actually got a tweet out of Des Bryant where he was saying, I go up, sky up in the air, take 1,000,000 steps and reach for the pylon, but that's a catch. Good jokes out of one of the best wide receivers of the past 10 years, and I am very excited to see if Dez has anything left in the tank against the Ravens. So good Thursday night football game. Maybe not the best, but I think after looking ahead to what we got on Sunday night, Cowboys Eagles, I think we can certainly say this might just be already the second or first best primetime game of Week 8. Quick shout out to our sponsors here at Monkey Knife Fight before we get on to some injuries. Every depositor that goes to Monkey Knife Fight, first time depositors that is, and puts at least $20 in their account while using promo code PFF will receive a free PFF Edge annual subscription. That's a $40 value for just $20, and you'll get the opportunity to turn that $20 into even more money playing daily fantasy and prop games at one of the fastest growing fantasy sports sites in the USA and Monkey Knife Fight. So go to Monkey Knife Fight and deposit your $20 with code PFF today to receive your free PFF Edge annual subscription. Love the fine folks over there at Monkey Knife Fight. All right, everyone. I've gone through all the injury reports now, usually on Fridays by 5, 6 o'clock, depending on when the West Coast teams get done with the work. But usually we'll know kind of the questionable, doubtful, out, and game statuses by then, and the rest of them coming an hour and a half before kickoff on Sunday. So, we'll have more information out Friday. Make sure, you go to pff.com, check out Mario Pilato's injury analysis article, and then just, keep an eye yourself on Twitter throughout the weekend. But we got a lot going on this week. I mean, truly, if you're in some high stakes leagues or DFS, you just got that rivalry game in the season-long league, and you don't want to take an L this week by any stretch, maybe try to carve out an extra half hour before 1 o'clock, because there's just a lot of moving factors here. So without further ado, we'll get into some of these situations. With the Seahawks backfield, Chris Carson is dealing with his foot sprain. Carlos Hyde has a tight hamstring, and Travis Homer, knee bruise. None of them have been practicing this week. Pete Carroll said Carson is a game-time call. Sounds like he's more on the doubtful side, questionable though. And then we have Carroll saying that Hyde's issue is nothing major, and like I said, Homer's injury is just a knee bruise. So seems like we'll see Hyde, Homer, DJ Dallas out there. I think we can treat Hyde as a legit RB2. I mean, the hamstring injury was concerning at first, but they're making it out to be a non-issue. Who knows with Pete Carroll? I'm not necessarily trusting his coach speak. Definitely monitor Friday, but they might just be getting them some extra rest. Again, none of these running backs are there. We haven't seen the Seahawks, make any big time just personnel moves to add to the position. So, with DJ Dallas, don't think they quite trust him yet with some of the just mistakes he's made to this point. Carlos Hyde, I believe, is my RB20 going into this week. Wouldn't expect anything major, and I hope he didn't break the fab, just chart on him, because we are going to get Carson back sooner rather than later. But he's a legit RB2 if active inside of this offense for sure. Steelers wide receiver Diontae Johnson with a toe injury. Looked like he was all sorts of banged up at the end of last week, but he was already a full participant Thursday and is good to go. He's been the number one wide receiver when healthy. Just a really brutal matchup against the Ravens. Truly, unless you're Patrick Mahomes, we just haven't seen anyone, get going against his secondary. So Diontae could definitely, win out and be a wide receiver 2 with the double-digit targets, but I'm treating him as more as an upside wide receiver 3 in the spot, and just kind of, tempering expectations for his entire Steelers offense. Dolphins wide receiver Devontae Parker with a groin injury has been limited. This has kind of been the case throughout the year with different injuries. When he's been limited, he's usually played. So expect him to be out there. But this Rams matchup just really sucks. They're doing some really good things out there on defense. I encourage everyone to check out Seth Galino's piece on PFF.com. He's our one of our best college football writers, and just he was looking at he does awesome NFL stuff as well. I shouldn't just put him in college football. Anyway, he was just going into some of the really cool scheme stuff that the Rams are doing this year, and how they've made life so tough on opposing passing games by putting more resources there, but not really giving up that much against the runs still. So really smart stuff there. And in this matchup with Tua, in Tua's first game, he has to go up against truly what's been one of the better defenses in the league this year. Fitz was already playing so well. I'm just really other than Myles Gaskin, I would say try to start someone else other than these Dolphins this week. I'm thinking this could be a pretty low floor at least this first week or two as Tua kind of gets his feet wet. Raiders wide receiver Bryan Edwards has a foot and ankle injury. Does seem like he is on his way to getting back. He was limited on Wednesday and Thursday. I don't know if he's even going to kind of crack these 3 wide receiver sets, though, when he comes back, because Nelson Aguilar is balling everybody. Edwards, I know he's their future, but Aguilar right now is looking like their best wide receiver. And maybe that means Edwards replaces Ruggs, but I just don't really see that happening. Aguilar is the one that's kind of, taking that Edwards role in the offense right now. We'll see. This Browns matchup this week is so windy anyway that I think, with these Raiders pass games options, I know the over-under is pretty high, but other if do like a contrarian tournament stack in DFS land, I don't think we should put a ton of stock in these guys. They're all going to be, and by all I mean just Aguilar and Ruggs. Edwards is not a fantasy radar this week. Aguilar and Ruggs are more boom or bust wide receiver 3 options at best, and someone we should really be relying on. With the Eagles, they have this amazing matchup against the Cowboys this week. Alshon Jeffrey still looking like he's ways away from playing, not practicing with the foot injury. Jalen Reagor though will reportedly be playing this week after being on the IR with the thumb injury. injuries. So Travis Fulgham's here to stay. He's got a slot, and I think Greg Ward's probably going to be there in the slot. But I think Rager's just going to immediately take over for John Hightower as this offense is kind of outside field stretching wide receiver. He flashed in his only 2 games, and he has some serious deep ball tracking ability. So I'm excited to see it. I think this Cowboys matchup, could be a little coming out party for Jalen Reagor. If he is out there on the bench in any leagues, everyone, please try to scoop this guy up. I mean, it was a situation where in college, he didn't put up the craziest numbers, but was pretty much the single most unluckiest wide receiver at TCU just because he really did not benefit at all from their quarterback's sporadic accuracy. Buccaneers, this wide receiver room, could really use someone like AB, but they will have to wait until week 9 to get him. Scottie Miller has been limited all week, should be out there, but he is dealing with a hip and groin injury. Chris Godwin with the fractured index finger is out for at least this week. And Mike Evans, he's out there, but he does seem hobbled with the ankle that he's kind of just been dealing with all season. So Tyler Johnson is someone that, as I was reviewing the ranks just tonight, going over these injuries, I bumped up a lot. I think, him and Scottie Miller are legit streaming options. Gun to my head, I would probably pick Miller over Tyler Johnson because I'm a slave to air yards. But, I do think Tyler as well, taking that lower A-dot slot role, it could be good. This guy's shown some legit contested catch and yak ability this season in his short spurts. But Evans, so what was interesting with the uses last week, and Godwin didn't really miss much time, but Evans spent more time in the slot than out wide for the first time all season, had a season high 32 snaps inside. And James Bradbury, who has given Evans, all sorts of problems over the years, doesn't really venture into the slot all that often. So look, you're firing up Evans and starting him regardless of the matchup. But interesting, just know for those Monday night DFS people that maybe planning on fading just because of James Bradbury, I do think Evans, could actually be free of that matchup a little bit more often than we're anticipating. Bears wide receiver Allen Robinson has not practiced all week with the concussion. It's looking like it's going to be Darnell Mooney's season, everybody. He's only $3,500 on DraftKings on Sunday. Definitely a legit salary-saving option. I put together a clip, I think it was today or yesterday, where he has literally about this year 3 potential 50-plus yard better ball touchdowns. I understand, pressure is kind of in full face on some of these, not the easiest throws, but, he's putting some great foam out there on Jalen Ramsey, on Carlton Davis, making these dudes bite hard on double moves. So we've seen a lot of good stuff from Darnell Mooney this year. Anthony Miller's going to get some more run. I'd expect, Javon Wims to probably fill out 3 wide receiver sets, but I think Mooney's the only one I'm really interested in this week. Saints defense has not been all that great this year by any stretch, but it's also, I think, a more talented defense, and they should be playing better. But, Mooney, someone that could be seeing, 8+ targets, and, hey, in fantasy land, you'll take that, and particularly with all these injuries and bye weeks around. So Mooney, I think, is someone that we can actually kind of put in that wide receiver 3 conversation. I would just say, he would be a little bit closer kind of that wide receiver 3, wide receiver 4 borderline than a wide receiver 2 land. Broncos running back Philip Lindsay hasn't practiced all week with the concussion, so it looks like Melvin Gordon's going to be a feature back again in this revenge game against the Chargers. Don't freak out, but look, he is, your typical volume-based RB2, same kind of category as Todd Gurley, David Johnson, these types of guys. We're getting 20-plus touches, and that's just incredibly hard to fade. So I understand Gordon hasn't looked like, the best version of himself this year, but, all those touches, you fall into the end zone once, and we're talking about top 20 production. So go to the well here. I wouldn't expect a massive performance, but he should be out there and getting those touches. Broncos wide receiver Tim Patrick has been practicing with a hamstring. It could condense targets for Jerry Jeudy and KJ Hamler. Chargers matchup just isn't that great. I'm a little worried about Drew Lock. He's been, one of the more sensitive quarterbacks to pressure this season. Not exactly what you want to see going into this matchup versus Joey Bosa and company. So again, Jeudy, Hamler, they kind of fall in like these Raiders wide receivers a little bit, and Mooney, where, okay, I think, it's a good opportunity to save some salary in DFS situations, but in terms of season long, we're not really bumping these guys up more than into that wide receiver 3, wide receiver 4 range. With the Saints, Michael Thomas actually got to return to practice on Thursday, seemingly has a chance to play through the hamstring and ankle injuries. If he's out, it looks like Marquez Callaway at least has a chance. He returned to practice with an ankle injury. But look, when Michael Thomas is out there, he's going to be a wide receiver 1 regardless. It's a tough matchup against the Bears, but Michael Thomas, one of those guys that we can truly, position for double-digit targets on a weekly basis, and that is just incredibly rare in today's NFL. Quick shout-out before we keep on going. PFF and Sunday Night Football's Chris Collinswood is teaming up with one of the best players on and off the field, 49ers All-Pro corner Richard Sherman. The Chris Collinsworth podcast featuring Richard Sherman is available now wherever you find your podcasts. They'll provide the most interesting football conversation in sports every single week, and sometimes that means the discussion will venture off the field too. And additionally, Chris will be taking a dive into the game of football as he sees it, inviting in the best and brightest to talk about everything that's happening in the great game of football. So mark your calendars. You do not want to miss the best 60 minutes of insight this season. on the Giants. So Devontae Freeman with this ankle injury didn't practice on Thursday. Wayne Gallman is going to get a lot of touches. The only problem is that they're facing the Buccaneers, who have just shut down literally everybody on the ground this season. And I think they have the kind of pressure to just ruin Daniel Jones in this offensive line. So, Wayne Gallman, definitely not a bad guy to have on your bench. He's not someone that's going to be cracking, my top 24 backs this week by any stretch. But volume. We're always chasing that in fantasy football land, and Gallman has it. And, if Freeman does remain sidelined, we will have matchups down the road that we can take better advantage of. I mean, he does play in the NFC East, of course. Staying in the division, Miles Sanders with the knee injury, not practicing all week. So Boston Scott, RB2 season again, people. And look, part of the reason why, we were confident last week going into the Thursday night game that his role would be different than week one was because of the lack of, weapons that were around and kind of still are around now compared to week one when we saw Corey Clement, have more of a role in the offense. So Rager's back. Dallas Goedert seems to be getting close, but, they're still thin. And Scott, with that awesome kind of game-winning touchdown he had last week, he looks like the best running back out there. I think he is the best running back out there. So I understand, he might just be the giant slayer, and he's not exactly someone that can ball hog against any other defense, but we are facing the Cowboys after all. I'm confidently treating Boston Scott as a top 15 option at the position this week. With the Vikings, it does look like Dalvin Cook is going to be back with this groin injury, and offensive coordinator Gary Kubiak said that Cook probably won't be on a pitch count. Kubiak also said that, he doesn't consider there to be any difference when Dalvin Cook versus Alexander Madison is on the field. So got to take, his coach speak with a little bit of a grain of salt, but I mean, it's Dalvin Cook. When he's out there, top 5 RB in real life and fantasy, don't overthink it, particularly not against a Packers defense that's allowed more fantasy points per game against RBs than anybody else in the league. Bills wide receiver John Brown practiced in full Wednesday and Thursday, should be out there. He roasted Stephon Gilmore for a long touchdown last year, which was, awesome. And I felt like bringing it up because I love my guy, Smokey Brown. Still going to be the Stephon Diggs show, but, I think it does help the offense having John Brown out there. I think it was... might have been PFF's Andrew Erickson, who comes on here and does the game-by-game breakdowns with us. But I think he brought up the point that, hey, Josh Allen really hasn't been as good with John Brown sidelined. And, I kind of scoffed at it at first because Stephon Diggs is so good and Gabriel Davis isn't bad. But, John Brown, he really is someone that helped bring Josh Allen up a lot in 2019. I mean, he's certainly one of the better number 2 receivers in the league on the outside when he's right and healthy. So, his impact on the offense, as someone that's, been telling you guys all season, when these quarterbacks don't have the number 1 wide receivers, it can be a problem. Even though, Brown is their number 2 wide receiver, his absence, still plenty capable of impacting that offense. And I think getting him back will give them, a better chance than ever to put up some points against Bill Belichick and company. All right, everyone, PSA here. A.J. Brown is fine. He misses every Thursday practice. They are resting him because they want their freaking monster to be healthy here moving on out. So the knee injury, hey, it's still there. I know he's on the injury report, and you get your little notification every Thursday, and you panic, or you see someone tweet about it, but he is fine. Continue to treat A.J. Brown as the every week wide receiver 1 that we've been hyping him up as since the summer. Mark Ingram with the Ravens hasn't practiced all week with the ankle. So, look, best case, we get 50% snaps for Gus Edwards. He kind of gets more of the early down work. J.K. Dobbins, the other 50%, and he gets more of the pass down work. And then it's like a thunder lightning approach. I'm not sure that's going to happen. I think Justice Hill could be annoyingly involved, with the Steelers matchup. No Devin Bush, but still not anyone's idea of a good spot. So hopefully, these kind of touch ranges go from like 8 to 12 to 12 to 15, but I just wouldn't hold my breath on expecting either Edwards or Dobbins to get fed. We do have the post-bye week kind of storyline going with Dobbins, but it's hard to fire up either of these guys, as top 24, even 30 options at the position. There's still just so much uncertainty going on with the touches, and I really do think there's a chance that Justice Hill just kind of slides in as a number 3 guy. About 6 more here, everyone. Thank you for sticking with me, as always, on the PFF Fantasy Football Podcast. Aaron Jones hasn't practiced all week, the calf injury, which means that's going to be Jamal Williams' season again. He's a legit RB1 with the role. Does it make sense that the Packers, drafted A.J. Dillon in round 2, had an injured Aaron Jones, and just did not give A.J. Dillon more than 5 touches? Of course it doesn't make sense, but that's the reality we live in. Jamal Williams is a legit fantasy RB1 when Aaron Jones is out. I have him 1 spot ahead of Giovanni Bernard, who is also expected to be, a top 12 RB again this week, with Joe Mixon not having practice all week with the foot. So I have both these guys ahead of Myles Gaskin, Ronald Jones, Boston Scott. Just realize, we're not talking true top 5, top 6 talents, but these are, 3-down backs that are getting those types of roles. Packers wide receiver Allen Lazard has returned to practice with the core muscle surgery. Go scoop him up, everyone. He is the Packers' number 2 wide receiver when healthy, and it sounds like that health is coming back sooner rather than later. Cowboys quarterback Andy Dalton remains in the concussion protocol. Looks like Ben DiNucci's season, still start Amari Cooper and Ezekiel Elliott. That is it for now. Really worried about this line against the Eagles pass rush. Colts tight end Mo Alley Cox is back at practice with a knee injury. Not good for Trey Burton. This is a 3 tight end committee. Burton might be the number 1 pass game option, but still awfully crowded out the position. Patriots, Edelman with the knee injuries, he'll be out for some period of time and undergoing a procedure. N'Keal Harry in the concussion protocol still. So we have Damiere Byrd, Gunnar Olszewski, my bad in that pronunciation, and Jacoby Myers as the only healthy wide receivers. I think the only guys you can kind of rationalize starting right now, maybe Cam if you're just really hoping on the rushing upside going, but I probably wait a week. James White is probably the only one. I do think he'll see a lot more targets with these injuries at receiver, and that is literally it at the moment. With the Chiefs, Sammy Watkins still not practicing with a hamstring injury. It's Tyreek Hill and Demarcus Robinson on the outside. Byron freaking Pringles playing ahead of Mecole Hardman. So Mecole, still not really startable. He's just not getting enough snaps. Needs to make the most out of his limited touches. In the passing game, it's Kelsey, Hill, probably Clyde and Le'Veon. And we're looking at Robinson kind of being a number 4, even 5 pass game option more weeks than not. Just focus on the big guys in the Chiefs offense. And last one here, everyone. Jamison Crowder is back practicing in a limited fashion with a groin injury. If he's out there, we can treat him like a legit top 20 option at the position. Jets love him. Say what you will about Adam Gase. The man knows how to get a fantasy relevant slot receiver out there, and that is just about the only thing we can thank him for. So if Crowder remains out, maybe Denzel Mims could be someone we really want to throw a dart at, but otherwise stay far, far, far away from this Jets offense. Maybe LaMichael Pirine a little bit, as a top 30, top 32 running back option, but just not the type of team we want to be associated with too often. They do have the league's single worst point differential after all. All right, everyone, that's going to do it. Thank you, as always, for tuning in to PFF Fantasy Football Podcast. I'm Ian Hartitz, and we bring this to you every Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday throughout the season. Watching every game, trying to look at every single snap. Just want to give you all the best information possible so we can all decipher it together and hopefully bring home the fantasy football glory at the end of the season. So thank you again for listening. As always, I'm Ian Hartitz. This has been the Pro Football Focus Fantasy Football Podcast. Until next time, take care, everybody.
Thanks for watching the PFF YouTube channel, and if you want to subscribe, all you have to do is push the button. Don't forget everything you get. A little fantasy, push the button. A little green line for the gambling aspects of the game, push the button. College football, push the button. The YouTube channel from PFF.